Hey everybody, JJ here. Today's guest speaker is one of my favorite people. We started real estate education with the same educational platform program a couple of years ago, and I'd heard of her, she'd heard of me, and as things had it, we've still not met face to face, but we've now become friends. We're on opposite sides of the country. And as you get into real estate investment, you're going to build friendships and relationships with people that may not be in your backyard. This lovely young lady is a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, started as a student, is now a coach with one of the major real estate education programs in the country. She'll probably talk a little bit about that. But one of my favorite people, my good friend, Josey. Jen, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me, JJ, the other JJ, by the way.
Yeah, we got the boy JJ and the girl JJ going on, so we got it covered. There's no others after us. For those that don't know you, what part of the country are you from? And a little bit about you.
I grew up in South Florida in Broward County, and I moved to North Carolina in 2006. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was a school teacher for 16 years until I woke up one day, realized I hated children. And then I decided to go to an equally abusive industry. I went into health insurance because I like people to hate me. So I was climbing up the corporate ladder only to realize I was halfway up the wrong ladder and saw a late night infomercial. And by the way, I just got over COVID, so I still have like the COVID cloud in my brain. So sometimes words disappear, but it could be age too, but I really have not been drinking or have cough syrup. So I joined the education program that will remain nameless. And that's how I got started and was able to quit my corporate America job. I worked for Aetna. I was able to quit that job within 8 months of starting my real estate business. So yeah, that's it.
Dude, and now you're a coach.
And now I coach. I have a RAIN mastermind. Whoop, whoop. Laura is one of my RAIN members. Whoop, whoop. And I have an agency. My flipping company is called Jolific Homes. I'm real big about coming up with business names, and it's my last name, Josey, plus the word prolific. So it's Jolific because I'm all about growth. And I live in Raleigh, which is the city of oaks. And there's a saying, the oak lies within the acorn, which is also about growth. So that's our symbol. And so we have the Acorn Agency, a investor-friendly agency where other investors can hang their real estate license. We have a construction company, Jolific Construction. We have several rentals. We just got our first commercial deal. It's a 12 unit up in Virginia, and that is Jolific Properties. So yeah, we're well-rounded.
Did you just say you're in North Carolina right now?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina now, yes.
Got a presentation planned for us today, so I'm just gonna pop myself out of the screen and let you share away and take it away, Jen.
So this is 5 factors for a 5-day flip, and here's my quick introduction here. Former middle school teacher. Oh goodness, I'm also a podcaster. Glad I put this on here. So I have a podcast called the Real Estate Investor Growth Network Podcast. And actually, Laura was one of my first interviewees on that podcast. And now I'm in my 3rd season. And JJ was just recorded. He is getting released not until the 2nd week in November. And on there, my persona is I'm the bestower of badassery. I've trademarked that. And so I will use it as much as possible because that was expensive to do. I have a wonderful husband, Vance. We've been married for 11 years. He's at the Carolina hockey game tonight. So this is Jen night. And I have 4 furry children. JJ and I love pets. And I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. I used to have chickens, but I just moved downtown, so I got rid of them. So 5 factors for a 5-day flip. And in the chat box, if you will give me if you have already flipped 10 or more properties, give me a boom in the chat box. Okay. And then how many people give me an oh yeah if you have never flipped a house? Yes. Okay. So this is for everyone. There are different things nuggets that you can get from this, but this is great for people just starting out. And it kind of fell into my lap when I did my former education program. I thought I was going to be doing full gut jobs. And we got this big project in the beginning, and I had a friend, I was posting everything on Facebook, as JJ says, just be very visible. And that's when a friend of mine said, hey, a girlfriend of mine is trying to sell her condo. Is that something you'd be interested in? I'm like, well, sure, let me check it out. So we flipped that first one, and it only took 2 weeks. And from there, I have since condensed it down. I'm going to show you how I do it. But the 5 factors includes the type of property, the marketing I do to get those properties, the team of contractors. It's going to be tighter profit margins, and we'll discuss that because that kind of freaks people out sometimes. And then financing. So these are the 5 factors we're going to go over tonight, which again involves everyone on here, whether you're new or have flipped 100 properties. This is one of those things where you're like, ooh, I'm going to try that on the next one. So the type of property, I already said it. Condos and townhomes. I love a condo and townhome. It's one of those things where whenever I meet wholesalers, and a lot of times they'll get them, coming across their desk, and they're one of those things like, they're like, it's a condo, it's a townhome. Who's going to want to flip this? Well, every wholesaler I meet, I say, I'm the condo and townhome lady. Anytime you get a condo or townhome, you bring them to me. But I have a certain buy box for them. I like them built in the 1980s and 90s. And the reason for that is because they've already probably replaced their HVAC system. I like an ARV to be around 250,000. I love condos and townhomes because you don't have to worry about the exterior. So the HOA covers the exterior. But because of the HOA, you do have to be aware of assessments. And that could be, instead of just the HOA payment, it's a special assessment on top of it. It could be an extra $100 a month because they're getting ready to replace the pavement or the roof or something of the sort. But for a little amount for updates, you get much higher returns. Condos and townhomes, why I also love them is because the average time a person owns a townhome is 4 years. It's transitional housing. When people are moving to an area, maybe they buy a condo or a townhome first just to kind of get to know the area. Maybe it's someone who's fresh out of college and that's the first thing that they're buying. Maybe it's a single person on a teacher salary. I lived in 3 townhomes when I first started out. And when you are getting ready to leave a condo or townhome, you don't care about anything. You don't want to touch up paint. It's because you're moving on to something bigger and better, unless you're going to like a retirement community or something. But typically, like I said, it's transitional housing, and people, when they leave, they're moving to their forever home, moving in with a partner or something of the sort. So they are so excited about where they're going. They don't care about what they are leaving behind. So that's another reason why I love them, because you can go in and do very minimal updates and it will give you much higher returns. All right, so if you're going to do any screenshots, screenshot this. This is an HOA checklist. These are things, and I think there's three pages of this, so definitely screenshot this. People get scared about HOAs, and I'm telling you, I love them. If you have a deck on a townhome, for example, or a balcony on a condo, and there's some boards that are kind of warped, all you got to do is call them up and they replace those. The most recent, the second to last one I did, so it was the beginning of last year, I did a townhome in a community and the HOA covered the windows. I was like, sweet, because we all know during the pandemic, windows were, I'm doing the project next door. I'm actually moving into that house. 5.5 months it took us to get windows. So I was thrilled to hear that they covered the windows. But you want to go through and make sure you are covering the docks. I'm going to go to the next one. Take a screenshot of this. You want to ask, like I said, about assessments. You want to know if there's any pending litigation. There was this one townhome. Well, I think it was a condo. I think they called it a condo in downtown Raleigh. Great location. And online, they had the HOA. You know, I was looking at other condos in that area, and the HOA was about $250, which is a little high for this area. But I got this one, and I was almost had it under contract, and their HOA was over the HOA payment was over $100. I'm sorry, it was over $500. Doesn't it take HOA forever to get those large fixes? No, it doesn't. They want, you know, new people moving in. So no, I do not. They're literally there within a couple weeks. So fixes for deck boarding, stuff like that, they're really quick about it. But anyway, back to that one, it was over $500 per month, is because they had pending litigation. One of the units in this one building flooded underneath. And so the owner sued the HOA. So it brought everyone just in that building up. So you want to make sure you're checking. All right, here's the next one. You want to get a screenshot of this. Pet restrictions are huge, especially for your buyers. You need to make sure you're asking what the restrictions are. And another thing with condos and townhomes, people love to rent them out. So you want to find out what the rule is on renting. That one townhouse that we did where they covered the windows, it was an odd place. It was near Duke University. It was backed up to Duke Forest. It had this creek. They had these massive windows. It was gorgeous. And you had to, whatever buyer buys it has to live there for 3 years. That was the first time I've ever seen that with an HOA. And the reason for that is because buyers take better care of their property. So for us, we had to make sure that kind of shrunk down our buyer's pool when we went to sell it, because the buyer could not rent it out to somebody else until they lived there for 3 years. So that's another important thing. So construction moratoriums on here, architectural approval. You're not going to be doing much to the exterior of them. So, and another thing why I like built in the 1980s and 90s is the cabinets were actually pretty well constructed back then. So I can literally, but they're dark brown. So I can go in and paint them, replace the countertops, paint the walls, do the flooring, and then I'm done. That's all I really need to do to them. All right, so that was all about the type of property. The next part is about marketing. Does anyone have any questions before I go on about a condo or townhome? I know I kind of went through the HOA stuff, but
I was about to say, I actually run a wholesaling company. So I was like, what markets are you in though? Is it just in North Carolina? You keep it local?
Okay, so don't be mad at me.
Yeah.
I'm now moving to multifamily. So I have just kind of stopped doing this. Now I may snatch one up every once in a while to turn it into an Airbnb, but I am in the Raleigh area. But yeah, so.
I was about to say, I got 10 units and 5 units right now coming up.
In New Jersey?
Yes, and in the prime real estate, New Jersey too.
Well, I also have a good friend up there who also buys multifamily, who I can also connect you with. We can talk about that after. So
Roger that.
Send me a friend request. I love to hear that.
Okay.
All right. And then Colleen is also a buyer. Karan. Yeah. Great way to market on here. All right. So speaking of marketing, I was talking about condos and townhomes. People live in them. Let's see if you remember an average of how many years. Put in the chat box. Yes, 4 years. Excellent. So what I do is I send mailers to the entire neighborhood. I know everybody on this call, when you first start off and when you continue, you buy lists, you buy probate leads, you buy pre-foreclosure leads, whatever it is. I don't use and I think my next slide, anyway, I'll get to that in a second, but I don't use any of those lists. So when I mail to the entire neighborhood, I may be the only letter or postcard that they get. And by the way, that's the only marketing I do direct mail campaign. I'm a big believer in it. And by the way, right now is the time to do direct mail. Listen to my words. People are freaking out with the way the real estate market is going, and they're hearing things. Properties are sitting longer on the market. Oh, maybe I don't want to list my property. And then your letter shows up and says, hey, we buy your house as is, close on your timeline, offer a fair price. People are jumping on them now. So now's the time if you don't do direct mail, think about it. So I mail to the entire neighborhood because I may be the only postcard or letter. And then I also, some of the places, so I use RealFlow for my marketing, and I can take a picture of that community, like the exterior, and send it to the neighborhood, say, are you thinking of selling your home in Pinecrest Townhomes? And it's very specific to that neighborhood. If you're not considering a move now, but one in the near future, please hold on to this postcard because Pinecrest Townhomes is one of our favorite communities. And people will hold on to that, and 2 years later, hey, you still buying in Pinecrest Townhomes? Why, yes, I am. And even if I don't buy it, I can then wholesale it to someone else because I am trying to move on to multifamily, excuse me. So you have less competition, but it's a longer waiting game because, like I just said, it could be 2 years. They threw your postcard in a drawer, but they still will call you after 2 years because they just want to get the heck out of there. All right, so as I was doing this, I'm like, I just did this presentation for the Savannah group. And what this is, if you live in a non-disclosure state, Texas is one, Montana, I think is one. I can't off the top of my head, but that means when you go to, say, Zillow, it doesn't show the sold prices of properties. So it's hard to determine comps in non-disclosure states. Also, this GIS, so GIS system is Geographical Information System. If you do live in a state where they do share all the numbers of sold properties, you go to your county or your city and you just put in Savannah, Georgia, GIS. And that will then come up with a website, and you can go in there for free and do a map search, do a polygon and circle an entire area. And it will then push it out into an Excel file. You have the owner's name, the owner's address, the property address, because it could be an absentee owner. It gives you when it sold last, what it sold for. It gives you all that information. So if you don't know about the GIS systems in your area, again, if you're in a non-disclosure state, it's not going to work, but it is something to definitely check out because it is free. So Karan, thank you for putting that in there. All right, so this is the one for Savannah because I just did this presentation for a Savannah group. But again, you can just go into the Google and put in Tampa, Florida, GIS, and see what comes up there. So you don't have to buy lists. That was the whole point of me saying that. Now, the next part of the 5 factors, the third factor is your team of contractors. You want to find, you're only using subs. You never have to hire a GC for these projects. Now, in some areas, if you do more than $30,000, you're supposed to have a GC. But if you do what's called like to like, meaning if you are taking out a cabinet and putting a cabinet right back in the same spot, it's called like to like. You don't need a GC. You don't need to pull permits for that. But if you're doing more than $30,000 on a condo or a townhome, then you're over renovating. So your contractors, you're hiring subs, whether it's, sometimes I use carpenters. There may be some issues under, with, I have pictures I'll show you in a second. Painter, flooring, countertops. Those are the 3 main. Sometimes I have to get an electrician. Sometimes I have to get a plumber, but you're giving them higher volume of work. So you're asking for these lower labor costs. And when you give them all this business, so I have a carpet guy, He is so loyal to me. I love this man. His name is Mickey. If you ever need carpet in Raleigh, he is awesome. But by giving them so many jobs, so those of you that flip 100, well, let's say flip 20 houses a year, in between when your painter's not busy, you can flip a little condo on the backside and keep your painter, keep your flooring people busy. So it also produces loyalty. You don't need quotes. I know my painter at the time, now he just raised his prices, but he was $2 a square foot. And that included walls, cabinets, trim work, doors, everything. He painted all of it because I was so easy to work with. And I gave him so much work. Now he's charging $225 and he charges everybody else like $250. But what I also do is I post a schedule for all my trades because it's such a short time frame. They know when everybody else is going to be there. And all that organization frees up your time. Your contractors, and by the way, so my countertops are $29 a square foot. I always use alpaca, Sherwin-Williams, it's Sherwin-Williams alpaca, which is like a grayish. So if there is a, kind of beige accent, it's going to pull it beige. If it's gray, it's going to make it look gray. But I do that on the walls. I don't even tell my painter anymore. I do the same countertops. Back then in the 80s and 90s, because again, that's my sweet spot, they had the linoleum, am I saying that right? Laminate. I don't know what I'm trying to say. The ugly countertops. So it's just automatic. They knew what color that I liked, and I can't remember the name of it exactly, but and then this, I post this. There's my business name. There's my acorn that I was talking about previously. I do the job site code of honor. And so my regular guys who I use all the time, they will, if there's one person who's like leaving Bojangles cups around, they're like, oh, the new guy just left a Bojangles cups in there, because I have on there that you have to clean up, and they end up tattletaling on each other. So I find it quite humorous. All right, where to find contractors? Not the Google. All right. We as homeowners or renters right now, before we got into real estate, that's the first place we went. We went to Google. We wanted to see reviews. You do not want to go there. Those people, when you are high up in Google, you are paying for that spot, which means they're going to be charging more. So do not go to the Google. Go hang out in Lowe's and Home Depot. I will sit by the paint swatch board, and I'll see a guy who is wearing Joe's painting company, and he's just staring at the wall of yellows. And I say, hey, is this your company? Are you Joe? Oh, yes. And well, do you ever work with real estate investors? Actually, no, I've never worked with real estate investors. Well, I love to give my guys lots of work. I pay on time. But what's great is you don't have the hassles of working with those retail clients. I see Karan on here, but the Karens out there, I hate to use that term, but who say, I want my bathroom painted yellow, but you can only be there while my daughter's at gymnastics, and that's between 3 and 6 every day. And, but he's sitting there looking at the yellows because she wanted butterscotch yellow, but now she wants sunshine yellow. And so he hears me talking to him saying, you get a code to go in, you play your music softly, and you make your own hours, and I pay you on time. And he thinks that is heavenly. So I'll take out my phone like JJ likes to do, and I will put them in my phone immediately, and I put painter. So when I do need a painter, if my regular ones are busy, I just put painter, I do a search on my phone, and I'm like, I have no clue where I met this person, but I'm going to call and see if they'll give me a bid. Work sites. So let me stress, I know people love to do this, but never enter a work site without the permission of either the lead contractor or whoever is, at the job site. I have the nosiest neighbors next door. If you're Facebook friends with me, I put a video recently. I post on my front door, smile for the camera, and I still have nosy neighbors, putting their face up next to it. So I started taking their pictures, and I posted their pictures on my front door. So anyway, you never enter a work site without getting permission. You could get hurt, etc. It's creepy. Stop doing it. But when you are passing work sites, you can check out the cars, and maybe there's a landscaper. Oh, are you the head landscaper? And then that way you can see their work. I saw a towel guy one time. There's a towel company, and he said, "Oh, let me invite you in. Do you want to see some of my work?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And I'll tell you, it was a crummy job, and I immediately deleted him from my phone. But approaching people at work sites, that is a great way to find contractors as well. Thank you, Melissa. Sheets. So I know I was driving to a conference in South Carolina. There's Buc-ee's, there's Sheets, there's Wawa's. I know you have down in Florida. So these are those gas stations where you can get food to go. You get food made there, and then you can take it to go. That's the best place. I would take my car, park at about 11:30, get my little soda and sit by the window and just watch as contractors came in. I'd say, "Oh, here's a tile company pulling up. Nope, don't need a tile. Ooh, a landscaper. I really need a landscaper." And so they'd get their food and they'd sit down behind me in the restaurant, and I'd turn around and say, "Hey guys, do you ever work with real estate investors?" And go through it that way. So I love finding them at Sheets. And the number one place, I want you all to put in the chat, think hard, where's the number one place, let me see if someone gets it, to find contractors. Other investors. Colleen nailed it. It's people in this chat. Okay, it's people in this group. When you go to RIA events, when you go to meetups, and whatever it is, it's finding those people. And then when you start sharing them, I was telling you about my carpet guy, Mickey. I always tell people, "Oh, ask for the Jen Josey special." And he always rolls his eyes. Using people in your groups, other investors, to find contractors, number one. So the fourth part about these, you have tighter profit margins. I am a coach for Homeschooled by Tarek. There are other people talking about their education programs on here. And the average ROI, the return on investment that you want when you are running your numbers and everything, should be a minimum of 10%. That's kind of the rule of thumb. Some people do a little bit higher, but I know for me, it's a minimum of 10% return on investment. So a lot of times, because I know I'm going to be in and out with condos or townhomes, and by the way, they fly off the market. They are so quick because they're cheaper. People need them quicker. Transition housing, like I said, there's a demand for it. So instead of looking at the percentage, I will sometimes just look at the number. And so, there was a time where it was about 7%, but I was still making $8,000. So I was like, well, I can make a little over $1,000 a day because I can flip them in 5 days. I'm going to take that day in and day out. So that's why there's going to be some tighter profit margins. You also want to make sure you do your own due diligence. Get an inspector out there. I have bought a condo or it was a townhome, and I did put an inspector out there, and the homeowner told me that the HVAC unit was, like 5 years old, and the inspection report came back that it was over 25 years old. I'm like, "Listen, ma'am, I am going to have to replace it." And she's like, "Damn it, she busted me." So then you can negotiate a lower offer. If you can't get in, so sometimes I know Karan is a wholesaler. Sometimes you can't get back into the property to do an inspection. And I have a case study I'm going to share with you that then you want to just make sure you have a higher a higher contingency, meaning you take an average of your estimated repair costs and just make it at least 20%. All right. Financing. So when you're doing these quick flips, it requires more lenders. I typically use a hard money lender in first position and a private money lender in second position. And that second position, because remember, this is a lower price point, is going to be a smaller number. It could be between 30 and 50 or whatever it is. It's great for new lenders. But because a lot of times I can be in and out in like 5 weeks. So you purchase it, you flip it, You get a buyer on that very first weekend, that first day it's listed, and they close within a month. So that's literally 5 weeks. So for that private money lender in that second position, I will typically do a 3-month guarantee. And like I said before, we were talking about that $30,000 price point. You never want to over renovate a condo or townhome. It's transitional housing. People don't care. You want a clean and safe place. I had a student who had done a couple flips before she came to Homeschooled by Tarek, and one was a condo, and she tore walls down and did this other stuff. And I was like, you totally outpriced all your buyers. So do not over renovate a condo or townhome. So this was one that I did in Talon Ridge. And I found this through a wholesaler because remember, all the wholesalers, I say, I'm the condo and townhome lady. Whenever you get them, bring them to me. And this is my friend Pam. And she found this. It was through a wholesaler. This was actually built in 2006. So it was one of those where I said, well, gosh, this is a little bit nicer than what I normally do because they're typically older, the ones that I renovate. It was occupied by renters. So I was like, oh, okay, we'll see what this is. We did a walkthrough on April 30th. We waited for the tenants to vacate. The purchase price was $120 and my estimated ARV was $165. And in case you're new, ARV is after repair value. Excuse me. Holy cow. I can't believe that happened. And then we closed on May 29th. So these were the before photos. Remember I mentioned it had renters. So it was a little wild, but good bones overall. You can see the carpet here. This was just, I mean, the whole place was kind of like that. And then I noticed this. I was like, And then as I shut the door, I looked back at the front door and you could see the kind of moon shape from the battering ram. So I did hear from neighbors that the police busted in on this at one point. So I had to fix the door frame and replace the front door. So this is my repair estimator. Paint, it was, wait, what was the square footage? I think it was 1,600 square feet. Is that 35 divided by 2? Oh, 1,750. Oh, no, I'm sorry. So I estimated a little bit extra because there was a couple holes in the walls, etc. But I do think it was 1,600 square feet. Replace the front door, like I just said, countertops and sink. I was only going to do the kitchen at the time. Flooring, possible plumbing issues. There was a wet spot on the ceiling, so I knew I had to bring my plumber in. Cleaning, electrical issues. They said that some of the fans weren't working. I saw it when the renter was in there. And so I just kind of was like, I'm going to need to hire someone to clean this place out. I just had a feeling that it was going to be left that way. So my total repairs was $13,000. So how we financed this deal, we had a hard money lender. We used a company called Lending Home. They have now evolved into Kiavi, and we borrowed 105.9, and we used gap funding was $30,000 with a private money lender. And our estimated hold time was going to be 3 months is what I told the lenders. I think you have to have a couple deals under your belt before you can use them. Unless you are a homeschooled student, they will lend to first-time flippers. But there are a couple other ones, but I'm sure, again, when you are ready to finance, you want to reach out to JJ's group and say, who are your hard money lenders that you're looking for? The gap funding was just friends of ours, other investors. We have a group where we all have self-directed IRAs where when I came from Aetna and from teaching, I put my little teeny tiny 403B from teaching, and then my larger one for my, few years in health insurance. And we put it into a self-directed IRA that we lend out to other investors. So this was another investor. So this was my estimated timeline. We bought it on May 29th. This was at the start of COVID. So COVID really hit like in March. And then now businesses are trying to figure out what to do. The closing was in our cars with umbrellas. It was raining. It was crazy. Anyway, I was going to have, the closing was at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had my junk removal guys. Again, I haven't even seen the place. I'm just assuming they were arriving at 1 p.m. So then my contractors were going to start on Monday. Renovations complete by Friday. So Monday to Friday. and then photos on Friday afternoon, and then showing start on Saturday. That was my projected timeline. I run a tight ship. Surprises. So the closing was supposed to be around 10. I had my guy showing up around 1. It went much longer. The owner had to drive from wherever, some state north of us, showed up late. Then we are told that it's not going to record until Monday. So I was like, ugh. So my junk guys were actually there and waiting for me. And so I'm like, I got to cancel you. I'm so sorry. And they had to drive and lug, their trailer thing away, and they won't work for me ever again. But then as soon as I tell them to leave, about half an hour later, it did end up recording. And so we end up going there, and my husband and I, at least they put everything in garbage bags. So that weekend get drug everything down into the kitchen area. It was in garbage bags. Thank you for that. But we had to get a dumpster. So moving the garbage, little sweat equity. My birthday, by the way, here was one of the items, which I was so mad the other one wasn't there because it was my shoe size. And yeah, I was very disappointed they only left one for me. But yeah, that was a beauty that was there. So on that Monday morning, like I said, was my birthday, and they were delivering the dumpster, and there's a gentleman that kind of came out, across the parking lot. I'm like, oh, sorry, sir. Are we being loud? And he's like, no, I'm so glad you're buying it. And he's like, I do punch list items for realtors. I'm like, excellent. And I said, well, are you busy? I'm like, I'll pay you $100 right now to move that mountain of trash into the dumpster. And he's like, I'm on it. So I literally just gave him $100 and he moved all that stuff for me. So that was like the best birthday present ever. I know that was a lot of garbage left in there, and I had the feeling. So here is the actual timeline. We did have the closing on the 29th. The trash removal did not happen. I became the person who had to move it down, but we did have the contractors begin on the Monday, and we were done by that Friday. So this is what I post inside the house. I even color coordinate it. I let all my other contractors know, and there's a misspelling on here. I'm a former teacher. It drives me crazy. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but if you take a screenshot, don't judge me. So my plumber came in first day just to make sure like what that leak was, on the ceiling. And then I get my countertops measured because my guy has a 5-day turnaround for countertops. I got to get him in there first. And then my painters actually started on that Monday. My cleaning babes went in, and they are magical. There is a bathtub that I was like, oof, I don't know what is growing in there, but they use a product called Barkeeper's Friend. That is a great product, and it will get out so much stuff. Then there was a spindle is that the word, on a stair railing? I think it is. And underneath the sink, there was a leak in the sink. So underneath the cabinet was all wobbly. And so I hired my contractor to come in. And then on Friday, the flooring guys come in, and boom, they are in and out in a day. There's a whole crew of them, and they replaced all the flooring. And then my plumber came in, did final stuff. And then my painter actually met me on Saturday morning to do any touch-ups that like the flooring people, if they nicked a wall or something. He was great. So that is what I do. Like I said, I run a tight ship, but by them seeing, what things are getting done. So like my countertops are getting installed. So then my plumber comes in afterwards to install the faucet and the garbage disposal. But then my painters know they have to be out of the kitchens and the bathrooms because they're not going to have access to them on Friday because the countertops and the plumbing is going on. So this is why it's great to have a schedule up for them. So here are the before and after photos. So it cleaned up pretty nice. This is a before photo. And this is the after. You can see I replaced the flooring. And I did laminates everywhere in the house. And then they painted the cabinets bright white. And then there's new countertops. The stove, you can see how messed up it was. And I tried to clean it. Like I said, my cleaners are amazing, but we actually did have to replace that oven as, for the buyer. So, makes sense. And by the way, I always do single basin stainless steel undermount sinks. These 50-50 sinks or the 40-60s, people, once you have the single basin sinks, people love them. You can't get a cookie sheet in the other one. So that's what I do. But again, I don't even have to tell my countertop guys anymore because they know that that's what they do. And no, I don't put a backsplash in there, Faith. Thanks for asking that. That's something, there's a teeny tiny little lip, but that's not really a backsplash. But I don't do it in this price point because it's not expected in a condo or townhome. If this was a $500,000 house, you want to absolutely put that finishing touch on there. So that was a good question. Those are granite countertops. I paid $29 a square foot. I got a great guy who does them. And then the sinks are $200. And then when I do them, I have to let them know what type of faucets I have, if I have the 3-hole or the 1-hole. So that's important to let your countertop guy know before as they're measuring. So this is one of the bathrooms. There's like one of the gross tubs, and you can see the flooring in there. I decided to go ahead and redo the countertops in the bathrooms. And you can see there used to be one of those builder grade mirrors in there. And so I did the same. This is the same flooring as downstairs. Barkeeper's friend cleaned this up, painted this bright white, and we just replaced the countertops. But right here, this is such a cheap, easy fix to buy a mirror. And we buy them from like Home Goods or Marshalls, stuff like that. $40 for a mirror, and it makes a huge difference. Like I said, minimal upgrades give higher returns. Here's another bathroom. And oh, by the way, this is that alpaca color. So you can kind of see that it kind of goes beige or gray, but we did a grayer theme in here. And you can see I don't do any towel bars. I don't do toilet paper holders because people will buy that when they move in, but they never notice. And that's one more expense. But when the ones that I have put toilet paper holders or whatever, they're like, oh, can you move that over here? If it's out of sight, out of mind. And another thing on that note, condos and townhomes, they'll have sliding glass doors sometimes. If there's one of those screens, so you open it and then you move the screen across, a lot of times those screens get damaged just from soot getting in the grid thing. And all you do is take it out. They don't say, but if you leave a broken one in there, they're going to ask for you to repair it at closing. If you take it out of sight, out of mind, they aren't going to ask you for one. Here is what the upstairs look like, and replace the carpet. There's that alpaca. Love, love, love that color. By the way, see the ceiling fans? Every time if there's like a jacked up ceiling fan, or if the ceiling fans are different from room to room. Now, this is not the normal light that I use, but I use, and I'm sure this is the technical term for it, I use what are called boob lights. Okay, that is the technical term. They look like boobs, and they got the thing in the middle. You know what I'm talking about. So I will take down ceiling fans and put a boob light, not this one. It was only because they already had those downstairs, but I get the kind of nicer ones. And that they don't know any better. And if they move in and they're like, oh, it's kind of hot in here, they'll buy themselves a ceiling fan. So always keep it lower. Would you remove walls for more open space in a condo? And if so, how long does approvals take for? And okay, no, you never, ever want to over renovate. I was just telling a story about one of my former students who flipped a condo before she became my student. And that's what she did. She removed walls, and she outpriced her buyers. So she put too much money into it, so no one could afford that condo. So no, do not remove walls, do the bare minimum. This is the downstairs. And I think I said spindle. I think that's what that thing is called. Again, my COVID brain. They had this ugly carpet down here, but I needed my carpenter to come in and do that. And this is what it looks like afterwards with the linoleum or LVP, luxury vinyl plank is what we use. Pretty cheap. My guys are quick. I would have preferred it going the long ways, but that's a whole nother story. So here are the actual repair costs. And I'm getting right up to the end here. So paint, yes, it was 1,400 square feet. I estimated more because there's a couple holes in it, but he didn't charge me for it. So it really came out to the $2 a square foot at 28. And the countertops and sinks were higher because I ended up replacing them in the bathrooms. It was just one of those last minute things. I'm like, let me just go ahead and do it. Faucets, flooring. So remember my my demo guys that were mad at me because closing was delayed. And by the way, when you have closings and you're buying a house to renovate, have your contractors lined up ready to start. If you're closing at 10, you're meeting them there at 1 o'clock, you have the lockbox in your hand and they start right away. Why wait extra days? So, but lesson learned here, because we all know in real estate, there are delays. So they were, my guys are pretty flexible, but they were supposed to demo the flooring. So my flooring guys, when they came, they ended up having to do the demo. So they charged us more for that, something priced like 75 cents price per square foot, but they hauled it away, which was nice. So we were able to get rid of that dumpster on the first day. So junk removal, I was estimating $1,500. And then the neighbor across the street, his name is Bryant. He did it for $100. So some money savings there. Plumbing repair, electrical repair. The dumpster we were not anticipating on renting. We ended up getting one. Like I said, we had to replace that oven. I forgot to budget for a garbage disposal. Anytime you remove a sink and replace the faucet, you should absolutely replace the garbage disposal. That same neighbor, Bryant, he pressure washed. He's like, hey, it's looking a little grimy. I have a pressure washer. And I'm like, heck yeah, let's do it. So I gave him $150 to do that. The bathroom mirrors and the miscellaneous supplies. So my budget was here and I went over just a little bit, which is really, really good. And so we listed it on that Saturday. 8 a.m., the painter came back and did some final touch-ups. 12 noon is when the showings began. Now, this was at the beginning of COVID, and we know people were like itching to get out of their houses and buy something new. So we had 18 showings on that Saturday and Sunday. We had 5 offers, and we are under contract Sunday evening at 7,000 over asking. And again, these are tighter profit margins, but I mean, we were grateful for that at the time. Then when COVID kept going, things were going way over asking, but this was still great at the time. And then Monday, welcome to real estate, that contract fell through, and I don't even know what happened, but it fell through. And then on Tuesday, we were under contract with the second person in line, and they were just 4,000 over asking. So overall, excellent repairs. The interest we paid, I think we did a 3-month minimum. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked at these numbers in a while, but the holding costs, just under $500. Closing cost commissions, the sale price, we listed it for $165. We sold it for $169. And our total profit was $22,864 for 5 days of work, people. So if you count my sweat equity, the weekend before, it was 7 days. But I mean, you can't, snuff your nose. I don't know what I'm trying to say. As something like this, I have made as little as $8,000, but I've made as much as $45,000 on a townhome. So I love them. There's definitely money to be had. Again, minimal repairs. Quran, do not take walls down, carpet, flooring, countertops, paint, and you're in and out. So I love, love, love a condo or townhome. So that is all for me. This is my website, therealjenjosey.com. I have a full group of real estate investors. I'm always looking to have awesome people on my podcast, which again is the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. And if you are in the California area or want to go to California, I'm going to be at a live event for Homeschooled, and it is open to the public, everyone. And you can go on that link right there. I know it's kind of weird. I don't know. You can't really click it from here. I'm not cool enough to figure out a QR code, but you can also go on my Facebook page and see it. But if you want to meet me in person, it's a great price right now. It's going to go up in a couple days, but come meet me out in Orange County. And Tarek El Moussa is running a live event. And then on a Saturday and then on the Sunday, all the coaches were hanging out the pool and we're doing a little drinking. So come join me out there. So if you go to the realjenjosey.com, there is a link in there. I love to interview people with past projects. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on here, but if you had a complete shit show, those are my absolute favorite interviews. So if it's something where it was just a hot mess, people learn so much from your mistakes. So when you come on, if you have something like that, you can do a past project. If you are selling a course or whatever, if you are just amazing like JJ and you're great at networking, we talked a lot about networking stuff on his recording, which is coming out, like I said, in November, but I will figure out how to put this in the chat. Anyway, JJ, that's it. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic, Jen. Gold nuggets, gold nuggets, gold nuggets. Love you to pieces. Awesome. I'm glad this is recorded. I think we have some questions waiting. So the first person we're going to get to, I'm going to bring in Cynthia Spencer. You have a question for Jen Josey?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all the great information. I learned a lot. As I was telling you, I did so many mistakes in my first flip, and it wasn't hard to find contractors, but to find contractors who would do what they say they were good, or they show up the day they say, instead of saying like little kids, oh, I had a problem and something happened, or what do you do in something in your contracts, or how do you make sure people perform the best? Or can you give me some advice, please?
Great question, Cynthia. Thank you for that. So like I said in the presentation, the number one place to find contractors are from other investors, because they're vetted. They've actually worked with them and they know, and they can, vet them. But in my contract, one thing that I do is I'll ask them, when are you going to be done with this project? They'll say July 15th. So I put in my contract, the job is to be completed on July 15th. If it goes beyond July 20th, you will then be deducted $100 a day. So just for, extending down. And when they see it and they sign it, they're like, well, hold on, you're going to take $100 from me. I'm like, well, hold on. You told me July 15th. I put July 20th. I gave 5 extra days. And of course, if there's a snowstorm, a fire, a hurricane, I'm going to not count those days. But that just keeps everybody honest. And some people I know say, if you finish early, I'll give you an extra $100 a day that you complete it early. So I have never had that happen, but I know some people that will reward it that way. But yeah, vetted contractors are huge. And when you find good ones, you want to keep them busy in your network of people, because then they have loyalty. They keep their prices low because they don't have to deal with the public and doing all that. So that is just a, huge bonus. And we try to pass them from investor to investor so that, they don't see all the good money that's out there in the retail space.
Thank you very much.
And also that code of honor that I put up, I have, and I've actually had to translate into Spanish as well. And so I have both of them on there just because they'll read it and they'll start telling on the others. And again, like I was a school teacher, I thought I was done with my babysitting days, but it still happens where I'm like, come on, boys. And so, and I have a gal every once in a while, but all right. Any other questions? Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that question.
Thank you.
Nicole Cooper, you are on with Jen Josey. What's your question?
Thanks so much, Jen. That was awesome. I really appreciate it. It is hard to imagine getting a flip done in 5 days, even if it is a condo. But obviously, in this price point, it makes total sense, and I totally love it. My question is, why are you transitioning to commercial, and what in commercial are you going to be kind of, transitioning to more specifically?
Excellent. Thank you for asking that, Nicole. So we have built up some capital, and now we want to just move on to bigger things. And in commercial, the surprises that I've seen so far is when I do marketing. Again, I'm a big fan of direct mail. When an owner of an apartment building calls you, there's no emotional attachment to the property, where you have homeowners and they're like, oh, I had a child in the back room and I love this house and my Christmas tree. And, so it's just, there's zero emotional attachment. It's numbers, it's business. It's just, I have just had a little taste of it. I'm like, oh, I love it. And I'm also, Nicole, buying out of state and finding property managers to do the maintenance and do any of the renovations, because my time is, girl, I'm getting old. All right. And babysitting some of these contractors. Now, granted, I have some great ones, but then again, couple, I'm just like, I am so done. And it's just one of those things where I'm evolving to it. I'm getting older. I don't want to keep getting my nails dirty. And it's one of those things where they're away. I want to enjoy some retirement type activities.
So are they going to be more value add and holds, or value add and flip? Value add
and hold. Great. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Mama wants some mailbox money.
Yeah. Understood. Enjoy. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Question. Rose Martin, you are on with Jen Josey. What's your question?
I don't really have a question, but I do want to say, I work and I put my Bluetooth in my ear to listen to music, because some of my patients are like savages and I don't want to choke them out when I'm working on them. But the other day I decided to scroll through it and I found a podcast, and I already said I love her podcast. But what I did was I listened to her podcast as I'm scanning, one ear. I can hear one patient in one ear, listen to her in the other ear. But there were a lot of podcasts that she did, and questions that I have, that even though I keep my questions for once a week when I ask her, but a lot of really good information. And what I like is in the beginning of her podcast, she gives out little nuggets, as she calls them. And there's just things that she's run into or problem solved before she brings the person in that's going to be talking on the podcast. Really good. I haven't come across any of them that are boring at all yet. All of them are real informative. And then when I get done, I just kind of make my little notes and the podcast number. And then when I go home, I go ahead and type some stuff up in my notes. So if there's other things I need to know, then I can ask her. If not, it's just the people that she's interviewed. They're great. And I do think there are some men out there that love her to death. You could hear it in their voice, right? I'm thinking, okay, that's her. They are, the person. You as well. Yeah, she's really good. And you can just hear the tone in different people when they're talking to her.
I'll pay you later.
Really. So I think I encourage everybody to do that and listen, because there's so many different ones. And I kind of jumped around from 100. Today I was at 98, 97, and 95. So everybody, at least you should try. Just at least try one or two, because then you're going to be hooked and you're going to be going 5, 6, 7. So there's my golden nugget for the day.
Thank you, Rose. I appreciate it. I'll pay you later. Okay.
When I come to Raleigh.
Yes. Right. When I hug on you in California next month.
I'm going to. I'm going to run down there, and then it's only an hour and a half away. It's just a quick drive. Well, anyway, that's my deal.
Thanks, Rose.
Next. You're welcome.
I want to thank you, Jen, for being on. Great content, valuable, invaluable, and 5 days for a flip. Wow, unbelievable. So if you guys are watching the video right now on YouTube, please like the video. Please put comments in. If you're on the call right now with us live right now, please go to the YouTube and for Jen's video and the others, like the videos, leave in comments, and that's just going to be beneficial for the speaker as well as for the channel. And if you guys watch this now, please subscribe to Flipside Up with JJ. Look for more of our presentations coming up with great speakers like Jen Josey. And thank you guys so much. If you're on the call right now, hang on, hang out, because we're going to do a little bit of networking, some live networking, and some breakout rooms.
Thank you so much for having me, JJ. This has been a blast. I love doing this, and I just appreciate the opportunity. And this has been fabulous. Thank you so much. This is
I wanted to ask you one more thing before we cut away. My group's a networking group. And, I always ask all the guest speakers, or I try to always ask if I don't forget. From your standpoint, as a former student, as a coach, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, for the new investor, much less the longer term, or someone's been doing this for a while, what is the importance of networking on making someone's business work? And joining a group maybe like mine?
So I actually have a challenge for everyone, and this includes old investors as well. If you are at a meetup event, or like I was just in Jamaica for a week with 250 other real estate investors, I challenge you to do this. I have met some amazing people doing this. When you break to go to lunch or break to go to dinner, I try to snag some random person and say, will you join me for dinner? Will you join me for lunch? And it's a little scary at first, but it's one of those things where friendships have just evolved. So Devin Bravaco is one, for example. She's a coach with me at Homeschooled, and I met her because her fiance, Justin, we were in the same room, and he has dreads, and I was like, and tats, and I was like, oh, I'm going for that guy. And I grabbed them, and they joined us for lunch, and we have been great friends. They're up in New Jersey. They actually came and stayed 4th of July last year with us, and they're both coaches with me at Homeschooled from one meeting. And we went to Hooters, by the way. So one time we just left. But I challenge you all to do that. Step out of your comfort zone, because that has just made all the difference for me. And go out and meet random people. But networking is the most important thing. If you're doing this from your computer and hiding behind a camera, get out there and meet people. It's so very, very important. And tonight we talked all about the contractors. That's a great way to find them. So that's my nugget for you and my challenge. So I want you to find me on Facebook and tell me you met some random person at a meetup and you went out for a beverage with them afterwards or whatever. So I want to hear that you all did this.
I love that. Jen actually goes right in line with one of the things I like to say all the time is when you network with intention. Don't just go and hang out and talk to your friends. When I go to an event, and I went to one a couple of weeks ago in San Diego with Step 2, got a chance to meet Pace Morby again. Love that guy. But I say when you go to an event, work the room. Go around the room kissing hands and shaking babies. Just meet as many people as you can. And, make yourself notice. If you're not memorable, you're forgettable. And, you don't want to be forgettable. So
thank you again, JJ, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen. On behalf of Jen and myself, we're going to sign out. Thank you, guys. If you're on now, hang out for the breakout rooms. See you soon, guys. Over and out.